Australia has a reputation as one of the most inclusive and LGBTQIA+ friendly places in the world. We're one of only 29 countries that welcome same-sex marriage. We encourage rainbow families with same-sex adoptions. Our Sydney gay and lesbian Mardi Gras is world famous and began as one of our nation's most important civil rights battles. If you surveyed Aussies, most would agree that nobody should be treated differently because of who they are or who they're attracted to. Unfortunately, the reality is that many LGBTQIA+ people still experience bullying and discrimination, which can lead to anxiety, depression, self-harm, and even death. Thankfully, these compassionate Aussies are leading the way and just trying to improve things a little. By seeing discrimination virtually, blowing the whistle on inequality, and taking kindness and respect to school.
I think I'm naturally inclined to think differently and to consider if everyone's going one direction, well, what is the other direction? I grew up in Wollongong, just south of Sydney, surfing, skating, and making video games. My first skateboard was actually my dad's skateboard. He never gave it to me. It was always his skateboard, but he let me use it. I remember when I was 4 years old, just standing on the grass and just sort of rocking backwards and forwards. I knew I was in love with it from the first time I stepped on it, saw my dad on it. Since being in Brisbane, I've helped start an inclusive skate group where we're just trying to make the skate parks more welcoming and more friendly for anyone who wants to be inclusive. It's just a real warm feeling of friendly community. It's being able to be vulnerable in your skateboarding and the tricks that you're trying and encouragement. I think Australians often act under the illusion that we are inclusive. We're often ignorant of our own biases and exclusive behaviours that we sort of have built into our culture. When I was 14, I taught myself how to program video games via Google. And although I nearly failed high school, I ultimately ended up dropping out of university to work for a Silicon Valley tech startup where I would teach leaders all around the world in the virtual reality space how to best understand and use this technology. I started playing around with the idea of perspective taking at a hackathon. Hackathon's like a design innovation competition in tech, and there was one themed around gender issues. My co-founder and I started playing around with role-playing in virtual reality where you could experience unconscious bias and what it was like to be in the shoes of someone else and empathize with different experiences. We started researching into the potential applications of this, and then we came up with the idea for equal reality. Right at the start of equal reality, I spent 1 year living in a van where my budget for the year was $5,000. And it enabled us to travel up and down the coast and visit lots of different people and lots of different clients without having to worry about affording flights and accommodation. Our first client was the Royal Australian Navy, where we got to work directly with the Chief of the Navy to do sexual harassment training, gender bias, and culture bias. The military have been doing simulation training for many, many, many years. So they just got it straight away. Where I think in the corporate space, people have had to be educated about this technology and understand how truly impactful it can be and that it can fundamentally change the way that we do training.
The interpreter stuff is looking really good, Simon.
You should check out the mocap stuff. They've got the really fine detail on the hands, and the way people sit up and sit down. It's looking incredible.
Morning, everyone. How's it going?
Morning, Brennan. How are you?
At Equal Reality, we do empathy training in virtual reality. You put on a headset and you live somebody else's experience. Your memory treats these simulations as actual memories. There's these studies that came out of Stanford University that show that virtual reality increases learning retention from 10% with traditional methods to over 70% with virtual reality, but it also can increase empathy, reduce bias, and lead to behavior change. We put you into somebody else's body and induce what is called body transfer. It's a subconscious process where your mind associates this new body that you have as your own. And you point at Victor, and now pull the trigger, and you'll become him. And you'll see a mirror gonna appear in front of you. And in that mirror is your reflection. And so that's you. We then put you into a social experience where you can experience what it feels like to be discriminated against and recognize bias. This is your chance to practice having an inclusive meeting. And so how can you make this meeting more inclusive for everyone in it?
When you put that headset on, you've changed identity. And in that session, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that the language that I'm using is actually that poor, which is really interesting because that's how I had felt a lot of my career, in that the language used towards me was not terribly inclusive. And I can remember having about an hour or two conversation with Brennan trying to unpack what had just happened and what I'd learnt.
It's really incredible when you realise how impactful this training is and how ongoing the effects can be.
Once you get that lived experience, you understand, and it's that emotional connection.
Just made the experience so real. It was amazing. Thank you.
We built a simulation based off an experience that happened to one of our clients, where they went to sign up for a gym membership, where if you sign up with your partner, you get a discount.
The intention of the deal is to cover just male and female partnerships.
I felt like I was in that situation and I was that person, and I really felt dehumanized.
It really hit home that how you present something can be felt in a myriad of different ways.
Carol, was there any bias that stood out for you?
The thing that really struck me is I have a son who's transgender. That put me on his perspective. I could see what he's going through every day. The way people look at him or her, the sort of furtive looks of disgust or, you know, it just really smacked down for me because, yeah, talking's one thing, but VR puts you right there.
We started off with our first client in 2016 when I was still living in a van. And now we've had our training run in every continent in the world except Antarctica. We actually got funded by a philanthropist in Washington, DC. And we ended up working with 50 of the largest companies in the world. It's pretty humbling to have received such international recognition and awards for the work we're doing, from Forbes 30 Under 30 to Technology of the Year in the US, to Learning Technology of the Year here in Australia. I think we're still just at the beginning of our journey, but I'm really excited by the direction it's going. I think innovation is fundamentally human. It's to move forward, to take what we have and try to make things better. And our ability to innovate is getting stronger with the tools that we have to help us do that.
When I first met Brennan, I was a little bit blown away, because Brennan rocked up in this kind of hippie look and bare feet, and I was kind of like, who is this Brennan guy? And that first conversation with him, you just got it that he's really passionate. His work is who he is. You've come into Brisbane as this young startup with this big idea, and you've done amazing things, and it's just going to get bigger and better. So congratulations.
Just because we've embraced same-sex marriage in Australia doesn't mean we should relax when it comes to sexual discrimination. Individuals and organisations all over the country work tirelessly for equality and inclusion for Australians of all sexual orientations and gender identities. Much of the exclusion and bullying of young LGBTQIA+ people starts at school. This is something that all Australian families can tackle in order to help everyone feel accepted in the schoolyard and in our communities, wherever you are on the rainbow. Because at the end of the day, Aussies are Aussies, no matter who we love.